Could you tell me briefly, how long have you been playing together with all the members of Twisted Sister?
7.5 years.
Yeah.
How much more brief can I get? I mean, what else do you want to know about it?
And how do you explain that in the United States, which is a very big market, you've only been out since 2 years ago?
Well, we've only got a... What are you doing? Let's listen up there. Well, we only got a record deal about 1.5 years ago. Well, we got signed 1.5 years ago. We couldn't get signed in the United States. We had a big following. Where we came from, we have a fan club of our own that we started. We had like 20,000 members in it. I mean, we had a lot of people. The people in the United States liked us. The record companies would not take a chance on something that looked and sounded like Twisted Sister. So we had to come over to Europe, where they're a little more open-minded. And even the companies here weren't that open-minded, but littler companies are. Sounds Magazine and Kerrang got us a little publicity and introduced us around. And so we got the record deal with Secret Records, a small label, which fell apart. The company went bankrupt. And then we got signed with Atlantic Records.
Yeah.
And now we're starting. Now it was the first worldwide deal. So we have our first official album out in the United States and all over the world right now. So explain it. I don't know. You know, for an act like Twisted Sister, you need someone who's willing to take the responsibility and who's willing to say, yes, I know Twisted Sister will be a success. And the first person to say that was the people at Sounds and Kerrang.
Finally, you did the contrary of the most great European bands who tried to be successful in Europe and then to try to get to the United States. And you did the contrary. You were born in the United States and tried to get success in Europe first.
Yeah, but a lot of famous bands have done that. See, the United States is sort of a wimpy country in many respects. Wimpy, yes. The music is watered down. They don't, and nobody wants to take a stand. Not the people, mind you. I'm talking record companies now, and the press and people like that, and say that they believe in something that is unusual or different or not like middle of the road, you know. And Europe, and they always look to Europe, England particularly, for, you know, is that good? You know, they see what's happening in England. If England says it's cool, then it must be cool. You know, if you go back to the 50s, when rock and roll started, everybody looked at the United States.
Yes, of course.
But now it's totally changed around.
Yeah.
The majority of your heavy bands are coming out of Europe. So by going to Europe, we were sort of getting a stamp of approval from England, which is, you know, rock and roll country. You know, that now the United States is like, well, now this is record companies and the business. I went, oh, maybe Twisted Sister could be successful. Although the people have never changed. Wherever we played, the people liked us. But the Stray Cats did it that way.
Yeah.
Jimi Hendrix did it that way. And we're going the same route, you know. It's been tread by some very good people, so I don't think it's a bad way to go if you have to.
Do you think you've created such a, we could tell, a movement as far as good looking is concerned? I think your way of making up, your way of driving your show, because you're a showman. You're a singer. I think you're a new showman. You think you created a movement as English bands are created the same in Europe, which is called vulgarly the glam rock.
Right. You say to me, I think that we started it.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, it's a tough question. I'm 28 years old.
Yeah.
I come out of the Alice Cooper Bowie era. That's when I was 16 and 17. I was down there, you know, and it's what I want to do. And then it died off, right? And I said, and I was in bands wearing makeup, and it went out of fashion. And I said, fuck this. I believe that this is a very viable, a very real
Yeah.
form of music and entertainment, theatrical rock and roll, you know, where you're not just hearing the record, but you're also seeing something, you're experiencing something. There's something to look at as well as to hear.
What I thought is perhaps you would have liked to give back colors to rock and roll.
Yeah, well,
Because we've crossed over a period where rock and roll was very poor, so it was colorless, you know. And
Yeah.
perhaps you try to give back color to that music,
well,
and perhaps joy and joyful.
yeah, well, I think so. I mean, we think so. I definitely agree. You know, I think we think that the music it needs that. People want to have that. I want to have that, and people want to have that. It gets called glam, but we're not glam because glam stands for glamorous,
Yeah.
and we're not glamorous. It should be called hid because we're hideous. You know, I mean, it's you know, it's not. It's not a glam thing at all. Whether people have followed us, I think yes, because we've been doing it for a long time, and a lot of people in Europe have known about us and been into us, like bands like Wrathchild from
Yeah.
England, and they
As I found
they have
don't
our,
like it.
They have our tapes, but they all seem to go for the wrong thing. They seem to take the surface.
Yeah.
You know, oh, makeup and dressing up, you know, and the whole rock star thing. That's what they want. They never seem to grab it by the, you know, the balls and
Yeah.
say, what is it? What this really has? The aggression and the fun and the excitement and the energy. They never seem to go that deep and
Yeah.
see, and that's why they aren't happening. The other glam bands aren't really being successful.
Yeah.
Hanoi Rocks, a very good band, but they're not copying us. But there you have more of a real glam kind of band, classic, you know, loose and everything. But they're not having, I don't know how their success is in Europe, but I know in England, they aren't very near us at all.
Yeah. And
What? Oh. Go ahead. Are we in his way? Oh. So, I mean, and I think it's because we blend the power of heavy metal with the visual of what I call shock rock, you know, that we are being successful where other bands will not be successful. I don't think it's going to become a movement. I think everybody's going to jump on a bandwagon. They're going to put on makeup. They're going to dress up, and they're going to say, "Oh yeah, it's a new glam movement." But we're not part of the movement. We're just going to be accepted as a separate. There's all these heavy metal bands. And Judas Priest does that thing, and Iron Maiden does that thing, and Twisted Sister does that thing.
Yes.
You know, everybody just has their own way of putting it across. We're not going to, I don't think it's going to be a movement.
perhaps you want, as far as I did understand you, perhaps you want to say that such the explosion of glam movement, it's a way to make a show and to hide the poorness and the weakness of the music.
You mean for some people?
I think of Rothschild, rocks and...
I don't think that's our case. I don't think it's our case at all. We may not be the
No,
most
not
excellent-
you, because
Oh,
because I think you're pure rock and roll music.
yeah.
It,
No, I'm
it
not
comes
saying-
from the guts.
I know you're
It's
saying.
Just it's what I think is that it's heavy metal. It's heavy metal because it must be heavy metal. But first, I know and I think it's rock and roll. What you do.
Well, you're right. So I understand what you're saying. Some people use that to cover it up.
Yeah.
Some people have accused us of that. And I say, we may not be the best musicians in the world, but we try to be as good as we can, playing and song-wise, and we try to be as good as we can show-wise. So we figure if we can get perfect at everything, instead of 100%, you have 200%. You not only have incredible music, you have incredible show. So we work at both as equally as hard, where some bands just work at the looking good and they don't work at the other side at all.
For instance, what do you think of Kiss?
Kiss is a band that we grew up with, but not musically. I mean,
No.
Jay knows them, and he was in the band that was Kiss before it was Kiss, Wicked Lester. He was a guitar player before Ace. Understand? So these are like, they were like just friends, and they're both trying to make it at the same time. Kiss managed to find the right band and get a record deal before Jay, from going from one band to another, found the right people and got our record deal. So, I mean, I should let him answer some of that, but we're not imitators. They were into Alice Cooper and David Bowie, and we're into Alice Cooper and David Bowie. They started in 1973, and we started in 1973. The only thing is, we didn't meet up until 1976.
That's interesting because nobody knows that. You've played with Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley before they built up Kiss.
Wicked Lester. Well, this it's known in England. I've done some reviews, interviews, but in 1972, a mutual friend, an attorney, was working with their producer, and I got involved with them for 2 months. And at that point in time, they had no makeup yet, and they were called Wicked Lester, and the music was very different than what you hear. In fact, a Kiss song called She, if you're familiar with a song called She, it's a very heavy Kiss song. Well, they wrote it with flutes and violins. The original version, a lot of vocal. You know the group Three Dog Night?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
that's how they were, like Three Dog Night. Okay.
Clean vocals, organs.
Violet flutes. I mean, and then one day they said, no, we're gonna get heavy, and they broke up Wicked Lester, and everyone just went their separate ways, and I split, and then they put Kiss together, and I kept looking for other people to play with, and found a lot of different people to play with, and finally they went off on their own thing, and they got into the makeup and their whole trip of putting a mask on completely. Twisted Sister's never been into that. We'd do a show,
Okay.
we'd take it off,
Yeah.
walk around, and we're just street people like everybody else. They took it
Yeah.
a completely different direction.
So-
It's not an imitation.
No.
It's just two people in the same era who just they happen to be luckier than we were.
Even the Dolls too, they're all from the same era. We all liked the same kind of music, all came out of the same kind of place, but nobody was imitating and nobody was stealing each other's material or copying. It was just that was one idea, here's another idea,
Okay.
and it all came out of New York,
I got
like the
you.
New York area.
I got
That
you.
was
We're
it.
kind of in between the Dolls and Kiss, sort of feminine makeup yet grotesque. I mean, it's sort of in the middle. Well, let me ask a question.
It's a question concerning the people. You've played in the USA and in England and now in Germany.
And Holland
Yes, in Holland.
and Ireland.
What's the most essential difference between the kids, between the feeling coming from the people down at the stage? Are there any
Differences between the different countries?
Yes.
I see zero. Zero difference.
I think so.
If you have, you can have 100 different countries. If they're all into AC/DC, let's say, it's a unifying point. Two people from different countries can meet, and if they're AC/DC freaks, it'll be an immediate bond. Oh, you like AC/DC? It's an immediate thing because you know the same songs, you into the same music, you know the same, there's a common thing. Heavy metal is a much larger subject, but it has the same feeling, gives the same feeling, appeals to the same kind of people in every country. And I've seen no difference except that the Europeans seem a bit, when I say violent, I don't mean violent like hurting each other, but physically more, throwing themselves into it and really get, linking arms and crashing around.
Like a football match.
Where the Americans, they go wild, but they don't want to start touching each other too much, because they want to keep the space and you can't smell bad and all that stuff in America, deodorant and everything, everybody can, So I mean, they go wild, so it seems, surprisingly enough, no different. No different. You say a difference?
Energy is energy.
Yeah.
You made the point that here they link arms. It's
Yeah,
a
but-
social difference, but that's about it. You know, you play to an audience in America. If people go crazy, you're up on that stage and you're bouncing off it, then energy is energy. It doesn't matter where the energy
The
comes.
searching energy, they try to get rid of their own aggression,
Absolutely.
aggressivity,
Well, that's
and
what it is.
then they're very cool. In fact,
I think so. Heavy metal was thought to be a violent form of music. It comes across violently, and the people react violently, and the bands act violently. But the end result is a draining off of the negative and the anger and the frustration, and that I think is one of the main appeals. It seems to appeal to kids between 14 after puberty and maybe up to 25. Some older, some keep going, some people like it forever. But it's a certain age where there's a lot of frustration and anguish and confusion. You know, Alice Cooper sang about 18. You know, the line, I'm a boy and I'm a man. You know, the people, you're a man, but they won't give you the respect of a man. Yet at the same time, they won't give you the privileges of being a child. You're caught in the middle where you say, and you don't know where you're going and what you're doing. You know, it's just a very confused time. That part of your life usually contains so much anger. It needs a release. And you're either going to beat somebody up, or you're going to break something, or it's got to go somewhere. Or maybe you get an ulcer. Negative energy has to be expended. And kids turn to heavy metal because it lets them scream, it lets them yell, it lets them go wild, and they feel better. Afterwards, they're happier. I know when I go on stage, I think negative, anger, and mean, and all the things for me, and I'm 28 and I still got tons of frustrations. You know, I mean, just the fact how long it's taken for us to start seeing some success. And I go out there, I'm just letting it blow off. And when I come off, I feel great. That's what I love about the music.
and coming to the most important fact of your show is the extremely way to communicate with your public. I never saw such a singer to speak, to shout, and to make the people react to something as you do.
It's just a part of me, and a part of Twisted Sister.
What did you mean, for instance, at the Reading Rock Festival last year, when you say to the public, well, you can do whatever you want to do, but don't be a wimp.
Yeah.
It's your logo, in fact, it's your leitmotif.
Don't be a wimp. Well,
Could you explain that?
well, that was when
does
somebody was
interest
throwing.
me.
That was when people were throwing stuff at us.
Yeah.
And I just felt, you know, there's some. I'm not like a man would be like man of war, mannishness, you know, and all that. I'm not saying that, but to throw something, to be in a crowd, and when no one's looking, to throw something at someone who can't see, is a very wimpy kind of unmanly. It's not even unmanly. It's just inhuman. It's just like. It's bullshit, you know. I can't really explain it, but it just seems like if you got something to say, you say it to somebody's face. You don't throw something in the dark. If you feel that strongly about it, then stand up and say, hey, this sucks. I don't fucking like it. And what are you gonna do about it? Say that to me. Say it to Jay. Say it to Twisted Sister. But don't in the dark and throw something like when no one's looking, you know. The same thing happened at Donington in the beginning. And it was literally, Eddie said, you know, he'd be playing like this, and he'd look down, and the minute he'd look at his guitar, people start throwing it. They wait for you not to look. That's cowardice.
Yeah.
You
So
know?
you want to fight hypocrisy.
Yes. We very much
But
against
don't you think
hypocrisy.
it's, perhaps would I dare to say so, but don't you think it would be a political position?
Everything's a political position.
Yeah,
You know what I'm
think so too.
Everything. Life, I mean, anything you do, you can make it a political position. You know? I mean, we avoid politics, yet that's political. To me, I think that's the main problem, the hypocrisy and all the bullshit. People judging people more on how they look than what they are, you know, which is Twisted Sister as well. People look and they think we're one thing, and then they see we're something totally different. You know, I mean, we're very much against that sort of thing. Everything's political, and
So-
what we're against is the bottom level politics, not with who's and who and who are the basic things that the basic motivations that affect all the other things. It's the same psychological bullshit that affects presidents and kings that affects the kids on the street. They're the same thing, you know, who's stronger, who's weaker, you know, who's cool and who's not cool, and who's in the group and who's out of the group, and except they're dealing with bombs in the world, and we're just dealing with a bottle, a beer bottle, and you know,
Yeah.
walking down the sidewalk. You know what I mean?
Yes. And by the way, I see in you, in your band, in your way of taking contact with the public, some kind of a resurgence of the old hippie movement at the end of the 60s in the United States, which was conducted by people such as Jerry Rubin, Abby Hoffman, and so on. Did you take contact with that movement?
Jay is more familiar. He was a high school revolutionary.
Well, that
Yes.
does interest me.
He was, and so I don't even know exactly what a hippie was. Was a hippie sort of a violent
Well,
version of a hippie?
Well, no, it was a more anarchic version. It was
Yeah.
a politically anarchic version of the hippie. It stood for the Youth International Party originally. And no, we're not like, I can tell you straight out, we're not. And
No.
the reason why we're not is because the yippies made a bad mistake. What the yippies did was they were a pseudo-intellectual group of elite
Yes.
college students who thought that they could get your average blue-collar rock and roller and convince them that sociologically their political beliefs were the youth beliefs of the entire movement. And they found out very quickly that the average rock and roll fan didn't give a fuck about political dogma and speeches and rhetoric and all that stuff. I was at a lot of those rallies, so I can tell you that the bands would come on, and then the hippie leaders would come on, and then they would spiel the party line, and you would see literally 3/4 of the audience. You know, just what we do and what that is completely different. When Dee relates in his personal visions and the band experiences, they are not politically based. They come from a much more universally accepted day-to-day situation that the average person experiences. You know, the work stinks, my boss stinks, I got hassled by this person, I'm sick of this shit, I'm sick of people telling me I have to be this way, etc., etc., etc. They can relate to that. We don't sit on the soapbox and preach philosophy, Mao, and all that. And it is a very, very big difference between.
Yes, but
Okay.
You said that the feedback from the people is very important for you. How would you, what would you do if someday this fact did not exist more? If you come from to the stage and you try to communicate with the kids, and there's no reaction. There is no feedback.
Then I'd tell them to get the fuck out of here. I'd hassle them and harass them and badmouth them and curse them until they got so disgusted that they'd either get into it or leave. It's always been like that. That was our basis, okay? When we started, I remember the first time 25 people used to play the regular, and our attitude was either get into it or get the fuck out. And I'll tell you right now,
Yes, it's
20 people, yeah, 4/5 would always leave, half or more would leave. Because especially in the early days, these people didn't even come to see Twisted. They just came to have a beer. And they certainly didn't want to come to be abused by some fucking poofter standing up there with makeup on, telling them, fuck you know? But we won't just let it slide. You know what I'm saying? We just won't let it pass by. Oh, they're not reacting tonight. Oh well, better luck next time. It's like, hey, wake up, motherfucker, wake up now. React. It's a little harder with people who don't speak the language. But I think at this point we passed it. If the reaction wasn't there, we wouldn't be there. Because I know I am, and I think Jay as well, are children of reaction. We got into rock and roll because people yelled and screamed, and attention. You want attention. If there is no attention, I'll go someplace else and get it.
Also, I think that what would happen before they would not respond to us is that they would just lose interest and go on to listen to jazz music or become more mature individuals, and we would get a new generation of young people who felt what we say on stage. Because as Dee said, the heavy metal, the rebellious rock and roll that is heavy metal is the only true rock and roll left. If you think about this, in the 50s, rock and roll music was rebellious, and that's what made it so important, right? Now in the 80s, with groups like Journey and Styx, everybody likes them, right? It's no threat, it's nothing secret, it's nothing you want to hide from your parents, it's nothing that is a titillation, okay? But what is the one thing left? That's the leather jacket, the studs, right? That's heavy metal music. It's the last rebellious music there is, man. Your parents will buy Styx. Your parents have nothing against Styx and Journey, but that's not rebellion rock and roll. Twisted Sister is and always has been that way.
When you're young, or when you're going through that time in your life where you're frustrated, you want something that's your own. I remember when I was 17, I got my first car. It was an old, wreck. And I come from a big family and have a lot of money. And I remember many a day where I'd be home and everybody was at the house and I was losing my mind, screaming and yelling because all my brothers were younger than me. And I would go out in my car and lock the doors and close the windows and I'd take a comic book or whatever and I'd sit in that car for hours because that was mine. It's had my name on the registration and my name on the license, and I paid for it, and there's nobody in the world who would say that this little space wasn't mine. Metal is like that too. No, your parents don't like it, your little brother and sister don't like it, only you like it, and they all hate it, and then you just love it, and so you just go in there and it's your escape. It's your escape.
So we're there for those people. And when they want to leave it, they go somewhere else, and we'll get another generation of it.
Maybe that's the reason for the technical things. You on stage, if you see a HM group, there are only martial acts. Maybe Vox and PV, but look there at
martial stars.
It's only martial. It's only martial. And maybe Gibson, Sport, SG, maybe quite different. But what are the essential technical facts you use for your music, for the rebellion, for the rock and roll?
I think just by looking the way we look adds to that aspect even more. You know what I mean? If heavy metal is rebellious, and if heavy metal is rebellious and a turn on, having a heavy metal band that looks the way we look on top of it is even more of a turn on to certain people, and even makes it more of something special for the people who are into it. I think our people thrive on the fact that there are people who hate the band. They love it. People say, I hated it. I love it. I'm Twisted, Twisted Sister. So the stuff that we use, the loudness and the makeup and the costuming, only serves to create more of a wall and more of a separation and more of a very personal thing for the Twisted Sister fan, as opposed to the heavy metal fan. It even breaks it down into even a finer thing. keeps us from getting lumped in with every other heavy metal band. You know, there's a lot of heavy metal, denim and leather. Not that we're not denim and leather. When we're on the street, we're denim and leather. But on stage, the Twisted Sister stands out. There's denim and leather and there's Twisted Sister. You know, and certain people are into that. You know.
Yeah. What I want to say when I talk about you political problems, I thought exactly about rebellion and the way the music, the way the rock and roll is music, and I see in you and perhaps in Motorhead the best way of expressing directly rebellion, and it's the fact that you covered Rolling Stones, It's Only Rock and Roll, comes from this way of expressing this rebellion, as Rolling Stone was very
Well,
rebel.
the song itself, we tend to like anthems, you know, war cries, battle cries, chants, you know, something. And Alice Cooper was very anthem 18 and School's Out, you know, and AC/DC has a lot of anthemic type songs, you know, that people just chant, you know, and that whole thing. And well, It's Only Rock and Roll happens to be, even though I feel the original version was so light and slow, it was very heavy in what it was saying. You know, the simple statement, it's only rock and roll, but I like it. So you can say what you want. Nothing's going to change the fact that I like it. And the words itself expressing, Mick Jagger saying, if I could stick my hand in my heart, spill it all over the stage, would it satisfy you? Would you think the boy's strange? And he's singing about, how much can I give you on stage, and how crazy do I have to go to get this point across? So the energy was there. We just took it and changed the song around just a little bit and made it into a heavy metal song.
Yeah,
But it's a universal song.
And,
That's one of the reasons we do it. You know, we can play a million places, and you open up a show here, and your opening band, there's 10,000 people, maybe 1,000 know some of your songs, and the other 9,000 are like, well, they never heard you. They kind of like it, but since they never heard the song, bad acoustics, it's a little hard to get into it. But then when you do It's Only Rock and Roll, everybody in the world knows the song, It's Only Rock and Roll.
Came out with you in this song. I think that today the Rolling Stones are not no more the rebellion band.
No, I think they really, I'm pretty impressed with them, actually.
They probably do the best self-preservation rebelliousness they can possibly do. Yeah, because they live like outlaws to a certain degree. I mean, they have so much money and they're doing whatever the hell they want to do with it and being successful. I think the Rolling Stones are getting the last laugh on everyone and still enjoying it.
I think they're managing to stay very current and with a lot of stuff. I'm not to say that the new stuff is my favorite stuff, but I'm pretty impressed with the fact that at 40 years old, they're still kicking ass, you know, in their own way. Even though I've never been a particular Stones fan, I liked them, but I didn't really click in until heavy metal.
But don't you think that nowadays, the Rolling Stones are totally involved in the business, in the system that they were about to fight 20 years ago?
That's the thing about the Rolling Stones, though. Who was it? Alexis Corner. He's a blues player.
Yes.
I played with some of the Stones, and he was saying that he thinks that they never really were all that rebellious, you know? I mean, that they sort of allowed themselves to be a blank piece of paper. And they never really committed themselves to anything. They never really committed to the hippies. And they never really fully committed. They were just sort of bad boys, and they sang and they teased people with a little of this and a little of that, and yet they never really said, what are you? You know, what do you stand for? Well, they always seem to stand for nothing, exactly. You know, in the hippie days, everybody was seen to be jumping on the bandwagon.
Yeah.
But the Stones, you know, they sang about sympathy for the devil and and stuff like that. But they're not really, committed. See, I don't think Twisted Sister. You will find the Twisted Sister is very capitalistically inclined. I mean, we are very involved in our own business. We're not going to be ripped off. But to us, that is a form of rebellion. You see, I've never been an anti-capitalist. I felt if you're stupid enough to let somebody capitalize on you, and I don't mean us capitalizing on people, I mean capitalists, taking advantage of the poor. Hey man, you don't have to be taking advantage. You can say, fuck you, I won't take it, I won't buy it. And you can jump up and down and advertise your underarm spray, I don't want it. So, I've never been manipulated like that. But so many bands have been manipulated because they never cared. And they have been capitalist pawns and all that shit. We're a bunch of motherfuckers. There's that word again. Because we're the wildest, and yet we're the sharpest. And nobody takes Twisted Sister for a ride. And that to me is a form of rebellion. Say, hey, that's my money, not your money, promoter and manager. And hey, excuse me, but you seem to have misplaced some of our money, motherfucker. And we're not really ripping. We've always done as much as possible for the fans to give a discount and to give a lower price and try and help the fans out. And it's this ability to see, to know the business end that allows you to control it rather than be controlled by it. When we come in and there's a high t-shirt price, the price of the t-shirt, we will not just let it slide and say, why is it high? Oh, because they know they can get more money in this market.
Yeah.
We will go ourselves and get the t-shirt person in here. This is bullshit. You're overcharging. Lower the price now or you won't be selling t-shirts. We want the people to have t-shirts. Yeah, we want to make money, but we don't have to rip people off at the same time. So I don't think the Stones' involvement and being streetwise about their own business is necessarily something that they fought against, The Who were like that too.
The Stones are together now 20 years, okay? And they just signed a $24 million record deal 2 weeks ago in America. And their last tour, they made $50 million, all right? So that means in the last 24 months, the Rolling Stones have made $75 million. Once you take away taxes and agency and promotion and all this stuff, you're left with each man maybe making $4 or $5 million. Now, 20 years they've been together, right? 20 years, and this is the very first time in their history that they have actually seen a profit because of a lot of problems that the Rolling Stones have had. Now you look at this thing for a minute. 20 years being rock and roll stars, 20 years people thinking that they're multi-millionaires, 20 years of them getting ripped off, beat, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And finally now, they have some millions of dollars. For all of the songs they wrote, for all the people they made happy, for all of the entertainment that they gave, for all the risks that they took, you deserve it. Why is it okay for a sportsman, for a boxer to get $1 million to fight? Why is it okay for a football player to get paid 500,000 pounds a year? Why is it okay for baseball players in America to get $1 million a year, but a rock band is supposed to just go up there, man, and make money for everybody else, and we're supposed to suffer? That's bullshit. Twisted Sister says if there's going to be money to be made on this planet, we will see that money. And anyone who tells you they get into rock and roll for the trip of it is bullshit, because rock and roll is not the safest job in the world to have. You're here one day and you're gone the next. So man, if you dedicate your life to this, that means that you drop out of school. Every other chance you have to make a living of learning a trade is gone. You've got no choices anymore. This is the only job you have left. This is it for us. This is like our job. We either make a living doing this, or there's no living to be made.
And it's
serious.
This isn't exactly a question you asked. It just turned into something that bothers us. But you know and I know that the public is fickle. You know what I mean? Fickle, convenience.
Yeah.
One day they love you, and the next day it's like, who? right? And you know what it's like to be, everybody loves you one day, and the next day, like, nobody knows you. Well, I don't want to know what that's like. At least, I don't want to know it and not have any, and all of a sudden be standing there. One day I was famous, the next day I'm not, and now I got to go work in a factory because I never went to college and I never learned anything else. And I'm 28 years old now, and by that time maybe I'll be 35. And my God, what am I going to do? I'm 35 years old. You know, what am I going to do now? I'm going to go work in a department store. You know, so I mean, we started out as a Stones, but I don't think the fact that you're business-wise and that you watch your own affairs means that you're not rebellious. I think in a way it's a form of rebellion.
Because it's the most independent. You actually have the most control over your life. Like,
People think that rock bands are targets. You know, they're there for everybody to make money except for the rock band. And how many rock bands, God, I can endless, have woken up. We ran into Mitch Mitchells, you know, Jimi Hendrix, drummer. They didn't even have a drum set.
there are too many names that we wouldn't even want to print of people that you would think are very successful. They had many tours, many albums, and yet they had nothing. They may have a little house, a little car, but they were ripped off left and right by everybody, and it's a shame.
And now they were, like you said, one day they're big, and next day the public doesn't want to know them.
Perhaps that's the reason why Jim Morrison died.
Well,
Do you think so?
I think it's good for them that they, so not good, but I think in a way they died without suffering the problems of that. Jimi Hendrix was not rich. He signed.
5 minutes cover, you need more.
Time. How much time?
Yes, 5 minutes.
You know, Hendrix appeared rich. He had everything he wanted, but when he died, they found out he'd signed a deal that said he got $1,000 a week salary and his expenses taken care of. Black Sabbath, you've read the stories about their management. One day, Tony Iommi says, one day I was a millionaire, and next day I had nothing. I didn't have a house, I didn't have a car. I found out the management owned everything. You know? That's not right. I mean, it's everybody wants to use up a rock star, and we want to be used. But when they throw you aside, I don't want to be left out in the cold. Yeah, it's a weird subject, but to be into.
That's very interesting. That does interest me anyway.
But I think to be manipulated by people is the norm, is the regular. Everybody's, they always, like record companies still love hot bands that get high, because they can spin them around.
I was asking some technical questions about the guitar, so we'll sit
Okay,
back there.
go ahead.
So you,
Yeah, go ahead, that's
okay,
okay.
good. Let's move on.
So, you know, that's a very angry subject, you know. You make so little, everybody thinks you're rich, you know, and you know more as well as I know, you know, like we're not rich at all. We're poorer than we ever were, because we're just starting out. And even though we're starting to get in the public eye, and in England we had a hit single, you know, and we're touring the world, we're broke.
Yeah, but to the fundamental concept, rock and roll is bound to risk anyway.
Oh yeah, I'll tell you right now, this is the honest truth. If rock and roll was not a money-making proposition, I would still play rock and roll.
Yeah.
But of course, I would have to do something else because you have to live.
Yeah.
I'd have to work a job and play on weekends or at night, like some people do. But because there's a possibility of making money and playing rock and roll all the time, the whole band has said, as many people have said, well then I'll take the chance. Because I love rock and roll and I believe in rock and roll, and maybe I'll make money, and maybe and I'll become rich, and so I don't have to do another job, you know, and I don't have to work on the side. All I can do is play rock and roll, and so that's what I want to do. But I swear to you, if it didn't, man, I'm still not making money, you know, and I'm playing it. I haven't made money for years and years. I've just, you know, paid my bills and been able, and I'm happy. The only thing that scares me a little is, you know, when it's all over, to have what will I do? You know, that scares me.
Yeah, but the reward anyway is to to have such contact with people anyway.
Oh, absolutely. I need it.
terrific, no?
And I take the chance, you know? Maybe I'll come out of it with nothing, and maybe I'll work in a factory, but I'll take the chance. It'll be worth it. Because
Yeah.
at least, you know, the saying is people say you're a has-been, and they say, well, it's better than never was. You know, maybe I'm a has-been, but at one time,
been, but
I
I've
was
been.
something. I played this place, and
Yeah.
I went around the world,
Yeah.
and it's worth it. You know, and I think emotionally to know you tried, even if you fail, to know you gave it your all, that you can live with yourself better than if you don't take the chance, and then the rest of your life you wonder, what if I had tried? What if only I had gone all the way? Well, I'm going all the way, you know, as simple as that.
And at least, that question, what do you think of drugs?
What do I think of them?
As so many times the drug has been so mixed up with rock and roll music.
I'll tell you, okay? I'll start out backwards. I think that society creates a situation where drugs and alcohol are a necessity, okay? Society dictates that you cannot go crazy and get away with it unless you are high. In other words, you're in a pub, you're straight, right? You stand on the table, you pull your pants down to your ankles, you pull out your willy, and you start pissing off the table. What happens? They call the police, they arrest you, indecent exposure, assault, they take you away. And then what? The guy, they give you a test, you find you straight, and where are you next? The funny farm. You know, the funny farm. Crazy people, right? But if you're pissed and you're drunk, or you're stoned and you do that, what do? They tell your friends to take you home and put you in bed. But if you're pissed and you're drunk, or you're stoned and you do that, what do? They tell your friends to take you home and put you in bed. You're too high. And the next day, everybody goes, oh man, you were so high. It's okay if you're high. People feel they can't go crazy unless they're under the influence, because drugs and alcohol are an excuse for any social mistakes they make. You understand? If they act stupid, well, you were drunk. If they act silly, well, you were high. If they, if they fall down, well, you were too stoned, you know? I don't do any drugs, and I don't drink. I never did any drugs. I drank when I was 13 years old. I got laying on the ground drunk, and I said, no thank you. I smoked pot when I was 20, about 5 times, and I said, don't work, not for me. I don't say drugs are bad, alcohol is bad. I mean, in the big picture, they're bad, but I understand it. And it's not everybody's fault that they were brought up in a way that they don't feel free without something. Luckily, somewhere along the line, I escaped the common bonds that hold people down, and I go crazy. I always have gone crazy without anything. Everybody thinks I'm fucked up, and people say to me, you don't get high. I said, what do you think, I need it? I'm not crazy enough for you? I'm not running around enough for you? And, and people go, oh man, I just like to see what you're like when you're stoned, because you're out of your fucking mind now. I feel it's a shame that it's a necessity.
Yeah.
But it's a very, necessity. Do you agree? Do you agree with me?
Yeah, I think it's a capitalist enterprise anyway.
To keep
Drug-
people stoned.
The
I'll tell
drug
you
connection.
The record companies.
No, the drug connection, the way the drug is provided.
Oh yeah.
It's capitalist.
Well, I'm telling you that the record companies
Enterprise.
like you stoned. I told you before.
Yeah.
I mean, they never come straight out, but they don't mind it one bit if you're on heroin. They don't, as long as you can provide the music, they don't care. Matter of fact, they like it better because you're more easily pushed around when you're stoned. It's when you're straight that they don't like it. Because when you're straight, I'm like a fucking razor blade. And I just cut right to the point, Don't fuck around with me, motherfuckers. I know. Yeah, I can read. People think headbangers are stupid.
Yes, they do.
They're not. They're not. We did a video, and we got a bunch of headbangers to do it. And we spent a lot of time talking and joking, and the wit, the sense of humor, and the sarcastic attitude only comes from intelligence and that people know. Headbangers aren't stupid. Maybe they are, but there's stupid people in everything. But it's not like, oh, you're a headbanger, oh, you're stupid. Bullshit. I think they're smart because they know where to get that release. They see the escape. They see the need for an escape, and they go to it, and they're much better people. They say headbangers are violent. I think they're violent in the crowd, but afterwards they feel better than anybody feels. You don't get that kind of feeling at a Kajagoogoo concert, all right? Well, Mao can't make you feel emotionally drained and better, you know? You know, some little girls, he wets their pants for them, but that's about it. It's all there. The drug thing is, you think it's a capitalistic thing? I think it is. Like I said, I'm not against capitalism. I think people allow themselves to be capitalized on. We're always straightforward. I mean, we don't bullshit. You know, we're not going to say, well, we don't hope to make money and a profit or whatever. But when we put in the time and energy, and when I go on that stage and I bust my ass and we bust our ass, I never feel that we rip the people off. Never. I feel I come off, we did a half hour and I was sweating and I was breathing and I I don't think the fans feel ripped off. They pay whatever they pay. I don't know what the money is around here, but they pay the good money. And when they said to his sister, I never heard one walk away saying, man, they ripped me off. They saw somebody busting their ass on that stage. We deserve everything we get. I mean, we held it together for 7.5 years so far, and it's a long time without a record deal. You know, that's a long time. You gotta believe. We, put up with a lot of negative, a lot of ups and a lot of downs and a lot of hard times and bad members and frustrations and agonies. And when you're 28 years old, I'm married, I got a kid, okay? And when you're 28 years old, I'm not gonna bullshit and say that doesn't affect your brain. You know, I'm still 16, baby. I'm 28 years old. And you know, when you go and fuck, man, you know, like, wow, what else is gonna happen? This kid's gonna grow up and I'm married, you know, and I gotta pay the bills and I gotta worry about someone else, you know, and there's all these responsibilities that come on you as you get older. And I take the chance. I say, I'll do it. I'm gonna do it. Don't doubt it.
Okay.
I appreciate that. I don't know.
It's not anywhere. We didn't an interview anyway.
Oh, well.
It's a conversation.
Well, I think that's how you get your best interviews. When you talk to the press, don't say a lot because they'll just cut out what they want. They'll make you look like an asshole. And I say, listen, if they want to make you look like an asshole, they'll do it whether you say a lot or you don't say a lot. So all I'm going to be is honest. And if someone twists my words around, then I know I was honest. If they weren't honest, and the kids, they know. That's why the heavy metal kids, they know. They see these new wave papers write a bad review of an album. They see when like an NME, you know NME in England? They know that NME hates heavy metal. And when they read an interview where the person, all they do is slander the band without once commenting on the music. Just say this crap went out in the Stone Ages and what garbage, these old men trying to play old music for old kids, you know, and they go, fuck, turn it off. They're not fooled. They're much smarter. They're much smarter than you think. I mean, I know you probably realize that. Because you're a heavy metal fan yourself, and you're not stupid.
Thank you very much.